Thursday, March 29th. Since the 21st, we've had a continuous gale from the west-southwest. We had fuel to make 2 cups of tea apiece and bare food for the 2 days on the 20th. Every day we have been ready to start, but outside the door of the tent it remains a scene of whirling drift. I do not think we can hope for any better things now. We shall stick it out to the end, but we are getting weaker. The end cannot be far. It seems a pity, but I do not think I can write more. Robert Scott. For God's sake, look after our people.
My design is to establish an institute to the benefit of every portion of the community of Baltimore. I wish to provide an extensive library to be well furnished in every department of knowledge and the most approved literature. It is to be maintained for the free use of all persons who may desire to consult it, with every proper convenience for daily reference and study. Let it cultivate those kindly and liberalizing arts that embellish the character by improving the perception of the beautiful and the true. George Peabody, Esquire.
Oh, the significance of Peabody's gift to Baltimore is really extraordinary. When he came here and created this institute in 1857, Baltimore, like most cities in the United States, really had no kinds of cultural organizations, no symphony, no museum, the kinds of organizations that really bring a focus to the cultural life of a community. What George Peabody did in Baltimore in 1857 was really to create a center for culture, for the community, and that's one of the important things that libraries do.
The library of the Peabody Institute is from the grand period in the mid-19th century when Baltimore was one of the cultural centers of the nation. It is a scholars' library covering the seminal period during which most of the notions that, for good or ill, govern our thinking today originated. On top of that, it offers a quiet, uncrowded place to work. What more can a man ask? John Dos Passos.
On Friday last, about 2:30 in the afternoon, clouds began to form in various quarters of the heavens with every appearance of being highly electrical. I repaired to the artillery barrack grounds with an electrical kite, and in very short time got it aloft. When about 100 yards of string had been let out, a tremendous discharge took place which gave me such a blow in the chest and legs that I was completely stunned. The accident was owing entirely to my own neglect and could not possibly have happened had I taken the following precaution, which I here give for the guidance of other experimenteers.
I think George Peabody was one of the most noteworthy philanthropists of the 19th century because he was a leader, the one who had an idea and then was smart enough to get the right people to implement it and then get out of their way and let them do it. So one of the reasons that this library is so important and has been so useful over the years is that it isn't like a private library that one person collects things that he may care about, but it really reflects what was the best of what was known and thought in the world at that time. Anyone who wishes to do research in virtually any topic you could imagine could find very rich resources for scholarship here. It's engineering and art and literature and geography and history and the decorative arts, a whole series of subjects. Educated people were expected to be very knowledgeable in a whole range of subjects, and this is what that library was intended to do and can still do for people who come to use it.
Of all the arts which are either improved or ornamented by architecture, That of cabinet maker is the most useful and ornamental. I've here given no design but what may be executed with advantage by the hands of a skillful workman. And I am confident that I can convince all noblemen, gentlemen, or others who will honor me with their commands that every design in the book can be improved, both as to beauty and enrichment, in the execution of it by their most obedient servant, Thomas Chippendale, St. Martin's Lane.
I sing of brooks and blossoms, birds and bowers, of April, May, June, and July flowers. I sing of maypoles, hawk carts, wassels, wakes, of bridegrooms, brides, and of their wedding cakes. I write of youth, of love.
The city of Bath was probably a place of some antiquity when the Romans came and discovered for themselves the value of its springs. The town beside the placid Avon is still a fair place. It lies in a hollow among beautiful hills. Its churches, terraces, and crescents are an alluring view, especially when evening is mantling them in its haze, and we cannot pass through it without a stirring of the imagination, a conjuring of old ghosts.
Some African Highways, A Journey of Two American Women to Uganda and the Transvaal, by Carolyn Kirkland, 1908. The sun blazed down ferociously on the railway station at Mombasa at the hour of our departure, 10:30 a.m. There was seemingly an inextricable confusion attendant on the setting out of this weekly train. Porters rushed aimlessly about, shrieking and reeking with perspiration. English officials in pith helmets and khaki suits shouted orders that no one seemed to carry out. At last, with a long, shrill toot, the engine started and we pulled out of the clamor of the crowd. The destruction sleeping sickness has wrought in this once well-populated land has to be seen to be appreciated. 10 years ago, one could travel through the country and subsist on food supplied by the natives. Now each traveling caravan has to carry its own supplies. On every hand can be seen deserted villages, empty straw huts, overgrown gardens in shambles, whose whilom inhabitants have all succumbed to the dread sickness.
Well, I think the two most common misconceptions about the Peabody Library are that it's somehow closed and private, whereas in fact it is a public library which was privately funded but was always meant for the public, the people of Baltimore, and remains to be that exactly today. Anyone may come in who needs to use this collection. We invite them to come in. We want them to come in. The second misconception is that if it's part of the Peabody, it must be a library that's about music. And the Peabody Library is not about music. It's about almost every other subject that people in the 19th century felt that intelligent Americans ought to know about.
I know of nothing that can be so heartily recommended to women as the use of foils. The awkward woman becomes graceful and dignified. The stiff woman, supple and pliant. Besides this, fencing gives dexterity of wrist, delicacy and fineness of touch, a firm hand, and a keen eye. There's no sport in the world in which one is expected to be more magnanimous to an opponent, especially if that opponent be an inferior. Above all things, be courteous.
The completion of the fourth bridge, which may be considered as a national achievement of engineering skill, cannot fail to attract an enormous amount of attention, not only to those directly connected with the engineering world, but also to any who take an interest in universal progress.
At this time of year, the season is at its height in Paris, and there's a constant succession of dinners, concerts, balls, charitable bazaars, and numerous betrothals and wedding receptions. Pretext for the most splendid and varied toilettes.
The articulation of the phonograph, although not yet perfect, is full as good as the telephone was 6 months ago. When perfected, the instrument will undoubtedly reproduce every condition of the human voice. And certainly, within a dozen years, some of the great singers will be induced to sing into the ear of the phonograph.
Libraries are never exhausted. The more they're used, the more they're replenished. What better kind of gift could someone give than to have a library which enables people to keep giving back to the next generation of learners?